Good to go, Amal? Yeah. That good? All right. Oh, you're up.
Okay, coming down 3, 2, and 1. Mark, we're in the offices of the NHL alumni right now. Over there is a lovely picture of Jean Beliveau. Behind Elliotte and I, there's autographed jerseys of the famous Detroit production line. When you're in a place like this, surrounded with history and great pictures of legends of the game, what goes through your mind?
Just the history, just knowing. I think back to like myself and when I grew up and all the, the stars that I watched in the era. I think me thinking back, that's a little further back. That's more my dad's era, but guys like Gretzky, Lemieux, Doug Gilmour, Wendell Clark, more in Toronto when I grew up. I just think of all the history and how much it meant for me watching those guys growing up.
Who's your favorite player growing up?
It was Doug Gilmour for sure. When the Leafs, I was obviously being from here, and they were going on those runs in 93 and 94 when they lost in the conference finals both years. But then as I grew older and started appreciating my position more in defense, I would go like Ray Bourque was one guy I really looked up to, and then Nick Lidstrom. As I got into junior and stuff, old enough to understand the ins and outs of the game, and then it's pretty cool to play against them too in my first few years.
Did you ever line up next to him or stand next to him on the ice and say, you were my favorite player when I was growing up?
I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak, but I lined up across from him. We actually played him in playoffs one year in Calgary. We played Detroit. I think that would have been my first playoffs ever, and. I remember looking across at that lineup, and they had Hasek in net. They had Datsuk, Zetterberg. It was cool. But he's the one guy who I always looked up to, and it was sort of the one guy you were out there and you're in awe playing against him.
I'm always curious. As a defenseman, you look at Nick Lidstrom play. Like, there are things that stand out to us. Oh, watch him walk the line, get a shot through. Like, what was it about Lidstrom for you that as a defenseman you looked at and you said, "Wow, that's incredible"?
Just how efficient, how easy he made it seem, like on breakouts and stuff. And I remember like dumping pucks into his corner. He'd just go back, and every single time he'd break it out clean. It seemed like so. But the one that does stand out, like you said, is the walking the line and being able to hit Holmstrom for a tip or score himself a lot of the time. But I would say just watching how easy it didn't seem like he was sweating out there most of the time, and breaking it out was so easy for him.
So when you first got recognized and sort of scouted and brought into the OHL, I talked to someone last night who said the thing about Giordano was he played in this tiny rink in Brampton. You know the one I'm talking about,
exactly.
Really small, and the puck would go into his corner, and he had like no time, but he would always break the puck out clean. He would take the hit to make the play.
You were the Lidstrom of Brampton hockey.
You were the Nick Lidstrom of Brampton. What do you remember from those days? Because that was your calling guy. He'll take the hit. He'll always make the play.
Yeah, it's funny. I played in a little rink, and I played in St. Mike's growing up too. I played for the North York Canadians when I was young, and I played in Brampton. And I do think it helps you get used to that, like playing in those close quarters and making plays under pressure. So I don't remember breaking it out clean every time, but I do remember. I remember our squad was pretty stacked. We won. We won the whole thing that year. We didn't get to go to the what's it called when the junior team wins the RBC and out east.
The RBC Cup.
Is that we didn't get to go because there's some dispute going on that year, which was really disappointing. But we ran through the league pretty good, and I just remember it was a lot of fun. And the old Brampton Memorial, what a rink! It's. I mean, you can legit score from center, so if you have a good shot, so it was good.
So did you play in minor hockey? Did you play with any other guys who made it, or play against any other guys who made it?
Oh yeah, I mean, growing up, Trevor Daly, Carlo Koliakovo, Jason Spezza, they were all at my age. Matt Stajan. So we had a pretty good class, I think, of 83s in the MTHL back then. Now it's the GTHL, but it was really competitive, and a lot of good players, I think, came out of it.
Who was the best player back then?
It was Spez.
It was Spez. Yeah. I figured when you said him, it had to. So what was he like as a 13, 14-year-old to play against?
So when we were really young, he was sort of like a tall, skinny, like had to fill into his body. And then I think like there was a switch. It was like when we were either 12 or 13, he just took off, and much like he is still, like super skilled, saw the game really well, made plays everywhere. He was head and shoulders above everyone else.
So, like, one of the things I'm curious about, like, Mark, by now, everybody kind of knows your route here. Like, you're talking about Jason Spezza, extremely high pick. Carlo Koliakovo, I think everybody knew he was going to play. Matt Stajan was a pretty high pick. Like, a lot of those guys you named were guys, like, so when you made it to the NHL, I'm curious, like, what did those guys all say to you?
They all say the same thing. They're like, man, you weren't that good when we were younger. But they're like, basically, like, where did you come from, sort of thing. But no, I mean, I could hold my own, but I definitely was never like the top player on my team or anything like that. And then I think my game really came around after I went to Owen Sound and played junior, and then took off. I'm
just wondering, like in the NHL, like
they chirp.
The first time you saw Stajan or Koliakovo, Spezza doesn't seem like the kind of guy to do that.
Yeah.
Right? But what would they say to you when they first saw you in Calgary?
Yeah, they're just like, you weren't that good when you were young, and they're like, wow, you really turned it around. But no, I can't remember like where I would stand on my team as far as like defensemen when I was that young. Like I still like to think I would be top 3 or 4 defensemen on our team, but yeah, it didn't stand out like any of those guys did as at that young of an age. But as we got older, for sure, sort of changed.
You didn't Owen Sound. I mean, you came in as a 19-year-old and you played 19 and 20 there.
Yeah.
Like you stood out. Like by Christmas, everyone was saying, okay, the Giordano kid is the best player on the team. Like he's the best defenseman on the team, best player on the team.
Yeah, but I think also going in as a 19-year-old, people are also expecting you to be good, right? So I think, that's probably obviously a big reason why I wasn't drafted. You're older, but I played tier 2 when I was 18 in Brampton on the Capitals and had a really good year there. So there was like whispers to me that I might get drafted in a later round, that just as a flyer, someone take like a pick on me, but didn't happen, and it actually turned out better being a free agent.
There's your story's a fascinating one, because not drafted in the OHL, not drafted into the NHL, and Elliotte and I were talking about this, I guess, like a couple of years ago, that in everyone's career, you face a moment where you say to yourself, here's my decision. I either quit or I work harder. Yeah. And it seemed every time you were faced with that decision, you chose to work harder. And it got you to Owen Sound, and it got you to Lowell, and it got you to Omaha, and it got you to Calgary, et cetera, et cetera. Were you ever close to saying, maybe I'm going to make the other decision?
Not really, but there was points like when I first started playing, honestly, I was like, man, if I can figure out a way to play pro hockey long enough to get myself, a nice house, it would be pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, my 3-way contract that I started with turned into a 2-way, and then I got some NHL games, and you start getting greedy, right? You're like, oh man, now if I can get a nice house paid off, a car, and a bit of money in the bank, it's pretty cool. And then as you get older and you keep playing against these guys, you believe in yourself. Like I started believing in myself more and more, especially after I went to Russia and came back, I really had a lot of confidence. But and then it just starts becoming about like, I'm gonna get this contract. But also, as you get older, you're well aware that winning is so important, and it becomes more and more important. So you're trying to establish yourself in the league, get your foot in there, and make a living for yourself, basically. And then I think after that, everything else comes. But for the young guys now, it's like they're expecting to play. Yeah. I was just like, oh man, I got to make the AHL. I got to make the NHL was like off in the distance. But then when you get there, you realize you can play, and you start getting more and more greedy. Can
I ask you one quick question about the KHL? Because you were, to my mind, correct me if I'm wrong here, and Elliotte, chime in on this too. I remember when you went to the KHL and you came back, in my mind, you were the first North American player that left North America, went to the KHL, and came back better.
Yeah.
That never happens. Like, what was the KHL experience like for you? Because you came back and it was like, Giordano's on a different planet now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I felt way better. I felt more confident for sure, but I was playing like 25 minutes, especially in playoffs there. I was playing 25 to 30 a night.
Yeah.
a pretty good league with a lot of skilled players. It was like I was getting a lot of experience just in working my game, and I don't know. I think some of it has to do too. Like I went pretty young. Most guys when they go over there, it might be on the back end of their career, or they can't really find a job over here, so that it's like sort of at the end. But for me, it was. Yeah, it was right in the middle of like, man, am I going to make a living doing this, or am I going to have to go to work, or maybe I can go to Europe and make a living. So a lot of different factors went into it, but I did feel way better as a player, and I also felt more confident coming back. I mean, Daryl in Calgary, he was like, we'll sign you to one way, and I'm like, oh, perfect. And he was like, but we have to sign you for 3 years. And I didn't really understand what he was saying at the time. What he was saying basically was, they were taking away some of my UFA years, but I was like, perfect. I'll take the 3 years.
You're the worst negotiator ever. So who was Daryl the first? Was Sutter the first guy who ever told you were going to make it?
Yeah, he was awesome because he was fair. Like he called us all in. I remember there was first rounders, second rounders, and then the undrafted guys. We were all in the same room, all the rookies, and he goes, I don't care who's drafted where. If you're good enough, you're going to play. And a lot of people say that, but he held true to his word. Like me and Richie Regier, he was also undrafted. Robin's brother, I believe he was undrafted. Mm-hmm. And we were two of the first call-ups from the AHL as defensemen to play in Calgary just because of the performance base. Sure.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you was, so on Monday night, we're here in Toronto, it's the Blue and White Gala, which is a really great charity event the Maple Leafs do. And one of the things they did which was outstanding, was table reads of famous movie scenes. Like John Tavares and Mitch Marner did a scene from The Notebook. And the Jerry Maguire, You Had Me at Hello scene was Austin Matthews and William Nylander. And T.J. Brody did the famous Liam Neeson scene from Taken, and it's the most emotion I think T.J. Brody has ever shown. And you did the big scene from Titanic with Michael Bunting where they're in the water. So my question to you, Mark, is when the Maple Leafs staff came to you and said, we want you to act as Rose from the Titanic, what did you say to them?
I said, absolutely. One of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, Titanic was awesome when it first came out. I remember going to the theater a few times and watching it, but I was just happy that my lines were short and Bunt's were paragraphs. So I was like, I'll take it.
I have to say, I don't know how many NHLers I'd meet whose favorite movie was Titanic. I have to tell you.
I have no shame in saying that. It's coming out again.
That's right.
On the big screen soon. So might have to go take the kids to watch it.
Why not?
It was a huge blockbuster when I was growing up.
It was a huge movie.
I wanted to ask you this when it happened. I never got a chance. What was it like having game number 1,000 in Seattle? You're close in Calgary, and then
it was. I mean, they did an unbelievable job. My dad actually was able to do like the voiceover.
It's 1,000 games, but it's more than that.
And then obviously my parents were there. My sister was there. It was just a really cool experience. A little bit weird because if you guys remember correctly, I wasn't playing that game because it was a trade deadline.
Yep.
But yeah, just the overall experience was great. Had my kids with me. But yeah, there's a lot of great memories, obviously, going back to Calgary. But the way Seattle treated me in that short time, I love those guys over there for sure.
Now you've had like a couple of crazy years of transactions. First you've got the expansion draft, and then you had the deadline. Yeah. And which one was? I don't know. What's the wilder, more taxing, more stressing? Which one of the two was harder?
I would say the draft, the expansion draft for sure, just because I'd been in Calgary for so long, and it was so weird. Like when they tell you, when people are like, "Oh, you knew you were going to Seattle," and I'm like, "No, actually, I didn't right to the end. Like I had an idea that it might happen, but just never being on a different team your whole career, playing in one city. My kids were fairly settled at their schools and stuff, so I was like, okay, this is going to be a big transition for us, and it was. But the few days leading up to that was pretty. you know, it's pretty emotional having to leave a city you've been for. I was there for 15 years.
You know, one of my famous stories I remember about you and your family in Calgary was the night before the NHL awards in Vegas. You're in Vegas, and we all, the reporters, we thought you were a slam dunk for the Norris because we kind of all know how everybody votes.
Yeah.
But your brother-in-law came up to me and he says, "Do you think that Mark's going to win?" I go, I think he's going to win it by a mile." And I go, "Really?" Because we all flew here and we're so nervous. We don't think he's actually going to win.
Yeah,
like,
nobody wanted to jinx it. They were talking, but yeah, I mean, I had a great year and I had a pretty good feeling about it. But you never know till you're announced.
What was that night like with your family? Where'd you take them for dinner, and what was that whole night like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was one of the highlights of my career. Obviously, after winning the award, you go back and you take all the pictures, and that was like emotional, and everyone was excited. And then I can't remember the name of the restaurant. It was in the casino where we were staying there at the Wynn, and we were just sitting. I think it was like a group of 25 of us just hanging out and having some laughs and enjoying the night, and a lot of family, a lot of friends. It was just like really, really cool experience.
Awesome. I remember seeing Brent Burns the night he won the Norris, and we happened to be in the same restaurant, and the Sharks sent him a huge magnum of champagne.
Oh, nice.
Seeing that whole family together and how much it meant to them.
Yeah.
Speaking of meant to them, when I say the name Tom Webster, what comes to your mind? The late, great Tom Webster.
Oh, I mean, he's a big reason why I'm in the NHL. I think I think the story goes that he was scouting Harvey in Owen Sound.
Yep.
And yeah, he came and saw me play and was one of the scouts or whatever his role was at the time who went to bat for me and told
he was in the coach's office after every game, I was told.
Yeah, and
Giordano.
Yeah, and yeah, if it weren't for him, really, if it's not for people like that along the way, like especially when you're undrafted and you're not a well-known guy, it's not going to happen most of the time. And I mean, I can't say enough great things about him, what he meant. And then after getting to meet him and just talking to him and trying to help me along with my game and where I needed help, he was huge for my career.
Toronto. Okay. Seattle, did you know you were going to be a Leaf? Like, did you have an idea?
So leading up to the deadline, I had an idea, obviously, but my agent kept telling me that, there's 3 or 4 teams in the mix. I think it was, the Rangers, Carolina, teams like
I
Toronto.
heard Carolina.
Yeah. And, I mean, you just don't believe it till it happens, but I was like, man, like, it would be a pretty good fit. I looked at, I think Muzz was hurt at the time. I think they had a couple openings on the left side, and I'm like, it would be a great fit. And then for me personally, obviously, the transition couldn't be any easier, like compared to the other teams. So I was pretty excited. And then when I got the call, Ron Francis called me in, and I was in the dressing room actually working out, and he came down and he's like, "If there's one place you'd want to get traded, where would it be to?" And I'm like, "Well, Toronto would be nice." And he's like, I traded you to Toronto. So
he'd already done it?
Yeah. But
I didn't know Ron Francis had that kind of sense of humor.
I think he kind of knew that it was one of my preferred teams. But yeah, it was a great day. And then, the family catches wind, and there was everyone was excited.
Do you like some players I know who are from here, they're afraid to play here. They're worried about distractions. They're worried about, the pressure of playing in the hometown. I was thinking, you were post 35 at that time. Yeah. None of that stuff must have worried you.
No, I mean, I think the point that I am at in my career, right, and I mean, I could see as a young guy coming in here, there's a lot of pressure in being from here, but for me, it's like it's exciting. My family's like, it's like a celebration to play for the Leafs. You know what I mean? It's a big deal. We were all Leaf fans growing up, and I mean, there's those stressful moments anywhere you play. Like Calgary was stressful too at certain times, but I enjoy playing here, play hard, and I think I've gained the real appreciation for the fan base here too, because they appreciate guys who go out there and play hard.
You've won a Norris Trophy, so you've had great years. But I was talking to somebody about you, saying we're going to interview you today, and he said to me that Giordano's had points in his career where he's played better, but I don't know if he's ever had a point in his career where it was more important for him to play as well as he did at the beginning of this season. Like, everybody was going down around you. Yeah. And you stepped up, and, you know, he called it, considering, you know, at what point you are in your career, some of the best hockey you've played. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I feel really good this year. I feel really, you know, I feel like the last few years were up and down, a little bumpy at times, but I feel really confident in my game again. I feel like, for me, games are always judged. Like, a lot of people judge games, and you guys know this, based on goals and assists and points. And I think for me, you know, I realized fairly quickly here what kind of decor we have and what kind of offensive guys we have, and I'm going to be more in a shutdown defensive role, penalty kill role, which I'm really enjoying, and I really try to embrace it, and feel really good. I feel really good. I feel physically as well as I have in years. I mean, not to say that I didn't feel good physically, but I mean, I have that jump. I feel like I have jump and reading plays the way I can, so I feel really good.
Sorry, I asked Sheldon if there was going to be any load management of you, and he said, "You ask Mark Giordano that question." Yeah, basically, is what he said.
I don't. I'm not a big believer in load management, but you guys need to stop bringing that up to him, so he can take that thought out of his.
Has he asked you about it?
Oh, he's been great. He's always, you know, he's always saying, like, if you need a skate off or you know, some time or anything like that, he's like, you just let me know and we'll manage it. And we have done some things, like we do a lot of like skill development and things before and after practice here, where you know, they'll tell me you're not going out for this and that, but there's certain things that I do that are part of my routine that I can't like get away from, and one of them is like our pregame skate. But our pregame skates here are like 8-9 minutes, so it's perfect. So just to get loose and get warm and get the body going.
I want to ask you about a record that's on the horizon. It's wonderful that you say that you're feeling good, and what I think makes that more impressive is how many times you've blocked a shot. You're going to set the record.
Oh, really?
You're going to set the record. That's on the horizon.
Was he like 8 away from Chris Russell?
Yeah,
my buddy Russ. I'm going to take over his record.
You're taking over. Do you have a thought on that? Like, I know that there's certain bench, right? We've talked a lot about the Norris Trophy and boxes that you check along the way. My first this, my first that, my first trophy, etc. For a record like that, I mean, that is, there's no school for blocking shots. Yeah. Like, there are ways you can learn and techniques, but I mean, a lot of it is
a lot of it's guts. Yeah, a lot of it's having the will to do it. I think playing on the penalty kill most of my career, you obviously have to block shots. If you're a defenseman and you don't block shots on the penalty kill, it's going in your net a lot because of the shooters we have in the game, especially coming in off the half walls. So, no, I take a lot of pride in it. It's something I've always, you know, felt like if the block's there, I'm going to take it. You know, sometimes you can get into trouble. You gotta be aware of screening your goalie and stuff like that. But I've always enjoyed it. You know, there's thoughts too. You don't want to be blocking too many 5-on-5 because that means you're in your zone a lot. But on the penalty kill and stuff like that, and especially in desperation times, like when you know those moments where it's you either block it or it's in your net, I really think it's important.
Whose shot were you scared of?
Oh, Shea Weber's for sure. And Sheldon Surrey comes to mind too. And his was scary because I can never read, like you can never read where it was going off his blade. And most guys, like if they pull it or drag it a bit, even slappers, like most of the time you can be aware of which side of your body it's going on. Surrey, I had no clue.
Did he know where it was going, or was
I don't think so. That's what made it so effective, right? If you don't know it's going in, and it was extremely heavy. And of course, Weber's is extremely heavy, but the thing that saved me is I play left, and he usually loads it up from the other side. So the right deal, eat those ones.
So will Chris Russell be getting a text like move over?
I'll text him now that you guys told me that I'm coming for you.
I wanted to ask you about your new teammates in Toronto. There's a lot of interesting guys here, a lot of big names. Was there anybody that you saw from the outside and you got to know them from the inside and you said, that's different than what I expected or different than what I thought?
Yeah, I would say for me it's Willie Nylander. I think, from the outside, you don't really know he's a skilled guy. Looks like he's different, a little bit different, but getting to know him, he's just a great guy, easy to talk to, super nice, and he has that confidence. You don't get to know that till you get to know him personally. Like, he has like a real confidence about him that goes a long way with his game, and he's hilarious to be around. He's just a funny guy.
You're not the first person to say that to me. Like, the William Nylander that we see on the outside and the William Nylander you really get to know, they're not what you think they are.
No, it's hard to explain, but he's got a really likable personality, and he's hilarious. He just, every day it's something new with Willie, and it's funny.
Like there's not like a care in the world. Like,
no, like nothing really bothers him. He has that confidence. Mm-hmm. He'll wear like outrageous clothes one day, and then the next day it'll be totally normal. Like, it's just, I guess the best way to explain him is like, you're never really going to get a great read on him. He's just, he's just Willie.
And do you keep in touch with the guys, your friends from Calgary? Like,
of course,
like Iginla and all those guys you keep in touch with?
Like Iggy and the guys who are retired, like through text here once in a while. Iggy's really busy with his kids now. I'm sure you know, and then like Robin Regier and guys like that. Fanuff, Dion, I still text once in a while, and then the active players, of course, like when things happen around the league or something happens, like I was texting with Luch the other night when they got in a little brawl there with the Rangers, or they had a game where they were just, everyone was hitting each other, and it was a great game. So we just chat back and forth and talk.
Did you ask Lucic why he let Sammy Blaine knock him over?
Oh, he was pretty upset about that. So, yeah, he was pretty upset. That's all I could say about that.
Sammy Blaine got traded, so they won't be there for the rematch, and Jeff's all disappointed.
I know, that's on the 18th. Look forward to that one. I spoke to someone last night who said if there was a Selke trophy for a defenseman, you'd be in the conversation every single season.
Oh, that's cool.
What is the part of your game that you take the most pride in?
Oh, for sure, shutting down other teams' best players. I think that's something I've always, like, night in and night out. You look at the lineups, you look at who you're probably going to get matched up against, and I think it's important to always try and win your matchup. And I think that's part of this year when you see Broads and Mo and Muzz go down. I mean, it's important for guys like me and Haller and the young guys who really stepped up. Like, you better shut down these top guys on other teams or they're going to beat you. And take a lot of pride in that. Take a lot of pride in my defensive side of the game. It's always fun to play offense, I'm not going to lie. But sort of as you get older and you realize you're on a team like we are with guys like Riley, guys like Sandin, guys like Liljegren, you almost have to say, listen, like, it's their time to play on the power play and step up and play those minutes and get those minutes for the team. So I'm excited now to be looked at as a shutdown D-man if I can later in my career.
I wonder how many guys come up to you and ask you for advice? Like, just because you've been around, like how many of those guys say to you, what do you think about this, or how do I handle this?
Yeah, they do. Like, a bunch of the young guys on our team do. And they're
what do they ask you?
Just an example, like I was talking to Connor Timmins about, he was asking me about playing guys one-on-one out of the corners and how to play. And I was explaining to him, when you're young, the tendency is to run and try and pin a guy in the corner, and because that's what the coaches are telling you, close quick. And I said, you better be aware who you're against, because if you're against Sid or if you're against McDavid, they're waiting for you to run and they'll spin you and beat you, and it's either a penalty or a goal against. So little things like that. Just things like, for me, watching young guys, what I was taught, like Mike Stuthers in Owen Sound. Yeah. He was huge on stick position and body position. And, like, for me, the one thing young guys can learn the most at coming in, everyone's so skilled now and can skate and can move, is like stick position and how much your stick can help you dictate where you want the guy to go. So little things like that I'll try and help. And then other than that, just trying to make sure guys have confidence, right? That's the number one thing. Try and pump them up when they do some really well. And not beat up on them too much when it goes the other way.
Well, that's the thing. Like at the beginning of this year, the year started quickly. Poorly. It was a total loony bin in the city, and I know. I remember the media. So I'm as much as responsible for everyone as anyone. But like, I wonder, like, how much you helped those guys kind of just get through it. Like, this is not going to last. Like, we just got to play. Like, how much do you do that?
Yeah, it was important at the start of the year because it's like that every year. Like, you lose the first game of the season, it's like, holy cow, like, we're not going to make playoffs. And it's like, well, we got 81 left. So it's like that in every team I've played for, every city. But yeah, I think we had a pretty good, we have a pretty good group and a pretty good sense of that. Like, it was, we knew we were going to be a good team. You know, I'm not going to lie, after game 8 or 9, we were kind of like, okay, boys, it's time to go now. But I just think it was about really simplifying and starting to play the right way. We were sort of up and down, back and forth, and it was on, you know, guys like John, obviously, are the leader, and then myself and Mo and those guys to, like, really make sure, like, there's a lot of noise. We're okay, though.
Okay. How much longer do you think you're going to play?
I think that question depends a lot on if we win the Stanley Cup. It'll change my mind, but I'm going to go as long as I possibly can. So I think looking at it today, I got definitely another year after this, obviously, with my contract, but I think I'd like to go beyond that now, thinking about it today.
Like, you could. Like, you're in great shape. You're still playing well.
Yeah.
Your team respects you. Like, you could play for a while.
Yeah, I think as long as my skating can keep up and I can keep that level of speed that I need to obviously keep up with these young guys flying around, I think I can read the game well enough where I can go for a few more years.
The guy behind us on the wall played till he was 52. Like, you know, like,
number 9 was pretty good.
I always remember looking at Chelly too on the bench when Chelios was on the bench, and I'm like, wow, I don't know how's that guy's playing so late, but yeah, I'll go for a few more years for sure.
But if you win the cup, you have a decision to make, you think?
I do. I think that'll be, you know, if we win it, that'll be decision time as well, if I'm going to keep going or if I'm going to call it at that point. But yeah, so it might be shorter, a lot shorter, hopefully, than. But I don't know. Then you win it, and then there's another side of you that's like, okay, I want this feeling again. So, but that's the only. What I'm saying is that's the only thing that'll change my mind, that it is going to make me stop. I think for sure I'm going to play this year out, obviously next year out, and then go from there.
We talked earlier about, you know, when you turn pro and, I'd like to get a house and pay for the house and have a car. You've done a lot of these things financially. You're secure. I am curious because you come in on a really team friendly contract, and I think one of the things that, you know, a lot of fans too look at that and say, like, we got Mark Giordano with this number. This is incredible. Some players want to get the most they can get at the end of their career. Yeah. Others have different ideas. Where's money at? Like, on the ladder of things that's important to you right now, where's money?
Well, look, I'm financially, obviously, I'm in a good spot. I can take care of my wife, my kids, you know, my family. So that's a lot of the decision in signing here for what I did was, you know, I'm not at a place where I need, you know, I need to chase the biggest contract I can find. It was more about what value does having my kids living in the same city as their grandparents, going to school here, you know, being from here, my wife and I probably going to spend the rest of our lives here. What value does that mean to us as a family? And it meant a lot. So I was willing to, you know, obviously sign for what I signed for here, and for me, I'm at the point in my career where I want to obviously chance to win it, and I'm chasing it here at the end, and I thought this was the best way to help the team in that sense. But as far as the other stuff, like, I could have probably went to market and got a bit more money, but I valued like living in Toronto with my family and the parents being around and all that a lot more.
Here's my last one. You watched the Super Bowl the other night?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff and I are really taking polls on this question. You saw the penalty at the end of the game?
Yeah.
Call you like to see with the game on the line, or call you wouldn't want game on the line?
Not a call I want to see with the game on the line.
Now, is that because you would be the guy doing the holding?
Because I'm a defenseman, yeah.
Like, I saw a quote from Colic Pozo where he said, that's not what I want to see. I'm just curious, would NHL players want to see that call with the game on the line?
No, I just think anytime you're in that, like, that's such a high pressure situation. I mean, I'm old school, I guess. I'd like to see it be a bad hold, if you're going to call it, or just let the game play out at that point.
Awesome.
Okay, last one for me, and we're going to go in the Wayback Machine here a little bit. This was a wild situation. I'm going to go back to your American Hockey League career. I'm going to go to a game between Lowell and Norfolk, and you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Big brawl, referee breaks a leg.
Yeah.
It goes on and there's a goalie fight at the end.
I think it all started because Brant Myers punched Trent Yanni, who was the coach on the other team.
Yes,
he grabbed him by the tie and punched him, and oh man, that was crazy.
What do you remember from that? Because I'm fascinated by the whole thing took about 10 or 12 minutes, I believe. And I've talked to a couple of people that were involved
in the room.
in it.
Like, the teams were in the rooms, basically half the teams, and
coaches are on the ice. Yanni's in a suit and he's getting hit.
And the worst part about Norfolk was you had to cross benches, and that's how it all started. So we came back out, crossed again, and but the thing I remember the most about it was all the tough guys, and there was a lot back then on each team. As soon as the brawl started, they all geared right down. They took
Myers.
They took their shoulder pads off, and it was more like shadow boxing. And like, I learned a bit. I'm like, what? Why'd they do that? And it was so you couldn't just get grabbed onto and suckered. So somebody had to come around and face you if they were going to get you.
The lessons you learned in the American Hockey League. Wow.
Was that the wildest thing in hockey you've been part of?
That one and the Calgary. Vancouver Brawl with Torts and Bob Harley. Yeah. Those were the two that stick out for sure. And Torts coming down all the way across, coming down the hallway. It was crazy.
We have to wrap this up, but I can't wrap it up without. Did you see him? Did you see anyone get in the room? Like, you're in the room. What happened?
So we're getting in the room, and like, it was just like you're in a big pile and you're getting pressed back and forth. And I think it was, I don't know if it was McGrattan or somebody was holding basically back. Like, Torts was trying to get in the room at Bob, I guess, at that point. And it was just like we were in a big scrum going back and forth, and you're trying to get a look at who's there. And then after the game, you find out it was Torts coming down.
Hockey Day in Canada, the spirit of hockey. That was fantastic.
This has been great. Continued success and I guess congratulations on breaking the shot block record.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks very much,
Mark. That was great.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I watched it again last night. I'm like, I think Giordano was I think he was on Lowell then. I watched, oh yeah, there he is.
Crazy, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.